So how about your, maybe we could call it vocation within a vocation, to walk with and share life with the native peoples. How did that develop?
Pure intuitions. I have absolutely no idealism about something like that. I think with my feelings, and I'd gone out to the res a couple of times when I was in training during summer times, and probably was planting seeds because I love being there, especially being out of the classroom. And I was supposed to teach catechism. That was in Fort Belknap and on Omak Mission. And both places I did the same thing. The catechism was a total disaster. And we shortened it as much as possible. The kids were bored. I was bored and incompetent. And then we said, let's go, let's go. And we go horseback riding and chewing tobacco. And one of the kids, like when I was in Omak, my first res experience, I had a boy named Bob Louie he wanted to ride behind me all the time. He was only probably 9 years old. And I'd be with these young native, and I began saying, oh, God, this is life. This is real life. It's raw. And they come from hard things that I didn't really know how bad it was at times and how good it was at times. Mm-hmm. But they come from raw life. And something about it planted something. And I'd meet Jesuits, native people over the years, off and on, because Tom Conley, my mentor, used to invite them to the house when I was staying at Gonzaga. And I'd see these elders come in. They were impressive to me. But I wasn't thinking. One morning at breakfast, I'm in campus, supposed to be head of campus ministry at Gonzaga. I turn to Tom Conley, and I just say, I want to go to the reservation. And I had no plans. I had no plan of saying that. I was sitting there with Thomas. I want to go to the reservation. And he said, what? Are you nuts? What's wrong? And I said, no, I want to go to the res. And he realized I was serious. And he said, okay, well, Nispil, I'm on the Colville. There's no priest there. They're just, why don't you go there? I said, I want to go there. I didn't know anything. But that's the way I am. I just want to do this. Mm-hmm. I want to do this. And when I mentioned it, I was there 2 months, and I said, no, I really want to do this. And it was a tough 2 months.
You were at the reservation for 2 months?
Yeah, I was in Nispil. I didn't know anything about anything. Uh-huh. I had never been around so much death and violence. And in 2 months, I saw everything. And because the priest is important to the people, you're called into everything. And I wasn't used to it. So it was a hard 2 months. And then I wondered, could I actually be here? A white guy and a church guy and all this stuff. And the Indians are the cowboys there. It's all tough, pretty tough living in loggers. But I wondered, can I actually be with them and be friends? Is that possible? And I thought it was. And actually, after even in 2 months, people would gradually maybe look at me. They wouldn't even look at me in the beginning, and they wouldn't even talk to me because they don't know me. They didn't know who I was. They got to read you very slowly. Sometimes it takes many years. One grandma didn't talk to me for 8 years, and finally came out of the post office, and she started talking to me. It was like, nothing. But they watch you, and they want to know who you are. And are you going to stick around? Are you going to be here? Are you passing through? And so it worked hard, but I wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. And it helped with my provincial then was Ken Galbraith, and it helped then that Arupe was saying that's where we should be, mm-hmm. which former times they wouldn't have said. They said, and in former times, if you were sent on the missions, the Indian missions, you were probably you'd done something wrong or you're sort of out of it. And in some situations that was true. Most of the Jesuits I met in missions were terrific, you know, but it's, you know, it's prejudice among Jesuits too. The lowest rung was to go on the Indian missions. I knew that because when I was a novice, even a novice starting the Jesuits, I heard everything else, you know, universities, high schools, white parishes, all that stuff was big stuff. And then the last one would be Native people. Well, that attracts me. And once I was messing up in my training and to acting up a little bit, so I remember one of the superiors said, you know, Pat, if you keep acting like this, you're going to end up on the Indian mission, which he meant is it's like, well, you're not going to amount to much then, Pat. You won't hit the university or anything. And but you couldn't have said a better thing to me. Then I said, well, that must be the place where I want to go. You know?
You experienced it as a source, as a kind of encouragement to continue on with your ways.
Yeah, it just really intrigued me. Yeah, that must be the place for me. And it was.
And could you say a little bit more about Pedro Rupe? You mentioned him, that he said that this is the place we should be. Could you just say a little bit more about that?
Well, he was, as they say now in retrospect, you know, they're saying he was refounding the Jesuits and going back to the sources of our spirituality. But the main thing he was doing is preferential option for the poor and being on the margins and going where no one wants to go and all those things. Well, he said, no, and, you know, we have our institutions, which are excellent. You know, we have all that. But we want that too. We want somebody out there. And so for me, the out there was the res. And it was out there for me. I had a lot to learn. But I knew my provincial said, came to see me, and he wanted to know if I was serious. And I said, yeah, I am. I want to stay here. And